This is my course on the 7 principles for making marriage work, which goes off the book by Gottman, the 7 principles for making marriage work. So some of the base principles that I think are important to remember. For one, he talks about the common mistakes within the first 2 chapters. Some common mistakes within between married couples is acting too fast. So this is the idea that they jump straight into divorce without much thought put into it as much, and they don't try counseling. They don't have a base. They don't understand the repercussions of divorce or the benefits of marriage and things like that, which he does discuss, and instead couples will act too fast nowadays and jump into divorce. The other 2 principles or common mistakes have to do with communication not being the only important thing to consider within a marriage, which is something that many people do believe. It's like, oh, communication is the only thing that's important, but he thinks that there's so much more beyond that. So while it is very important, it's not the only thing that's important. And this also goes to talk about active listening. Both of those aspects are super important within a marriage. However, they don't define the whole health of the relationship, but rather aspects of empathy and understanding your partner are also part of the principles. A principle that is really important to remember when talking about the principles is PSO, which is positive sentiment override. This is the understanding of having a positive feeling towards your partner as well as like past memories, because having that sort of positive feeling will really help within conflict. And then he also comes up with the 4 horsemen, which are things that can completely overtake a relationship in a very negative way. So these things are defensiveness within arguments, criticism towards a specific characteristic and of a person rather than a specific action, as well as contempt within ourselves, and stonewalling, which is overall disengaging from the partner in a relational way. So principle number 1, this is enhancing your love maps. This basically just means understanding your partner in every aspect, knowing what they like, they don't like. It helps you to become a really good servant to them when you know more about them. And enhancing your love map can help you have a better positive sentiment override. So having this positive aspect of who they are because you know more about them emotionally and the things going on in their life today, it can help you to just have a more positive feeling towards them, which overall does help with conflict and soothing conflict and not having all these negative emotions overwhelm you during disagreements and things like that. And so there's exercises that can enhance your love map, such as asking questions towards each other that he writes of. And then as well, he talks about the importance of knowing yourself. So he goes through knowing your dreams, your fears, your past traumas, things like that. And knowing that about yourself can help your partner to also better understand you. So those are good exercises he gives to enhancing your love maps. Principle number 2 is nurturing your fondness and admiration for one another. So this is basically the idea that you understand that your partner is worthy of respect and admiration, and that nurturing that sort of aspect towards them comes from principle 1, because the principles do build on one another. And it is also bad when you don't nurture your fondness and admiration, because then negative thoughts within arguments can especially take over and kind of control the way you deal with conflict. It is important to remind yourself of positive qualities. Otherwise, this can lead to contempt if you do not. And having contempt toward our partners can cause a lot of just inability to kind of be able to talk things out again in the future, and a lot of hurt within one another, which is talked about further in the principles. But another aspect of this principle is really appreciating your partner for who they are and kind of looking at the good aspects of them and who they maybe once were as well. And so those are important things to exercises to nurture your fondness and admiration for your partner. Principle number 3 is turning toward each other instead of away from each other. This builds a mutual trust. Turning towards each other it means when there is conflict and conflict arises, it's really important to kind of do things where you're looking towards the other person, because otherwise the trust is just broken. But in this principle, there's an idea that is talked about that is making bids for the other's attention. And when you make bids towards your partner, it can allow them to see that you want, especially in a soft way, it can allow them to see that they want your attention and they just appreciate who you are and want to spend time with you, which allows for you to kind of, I want to say take their influence, but that's in a future thing. But yeah, and just allow you to be present with your partner, which can allow for a really great relationship. And then these things, when you do turn towards your partner, and especially make bids for each other's attention, can get added to what Gottman calls your emotional bank account. So this is basically all the times that you can count having bidded for another person. Some problems within turning towards one another is that we can often miss a bid, especially if it's covered by anger or being distracted by the world around you, and then you miss when your partner's yearning for your attention, and that can cause hostility. And then he also talks about within this principle how important it is to be dealing with your partner's emotions, and sometimes that can be hard because partners don't understand or don't feel comfortable dealing with emotion. However, it's important to learn how to cope with your partner's emotion and kind of be there to handle those things when problems do arise. So principle number 4 is letting your partner influence you. This has to do a lot with decision making, as well as understanding that your partner can have this sort of equal power with you to an extent. Yeah, it's just really important to be able to take, to an extent, criticism or like sort of what they are hoping for and their perspectives, and the word I'm looking for is, I don't remember. Anyways, so yeah, you want to share this power with each other and compromise, basically, to an extent, as letting your partner influence you. Oh yeah, he talks about within this principle how men learn things from women. So this is really important because women have always just kind of grown up practicing a lot more emotional intelligence through relational practice, while men don't. So they learn a lot later in life, and this leads to an emotionally intelligent husband, which is really an interesting topic to get into. But a lot of men are kind of blocked off and don't want to accept influence from their wives. However, when they do, this leads to a healthier relationship and a happier person, because in order to influence, you have to accept influence from others. Principle number 5 is solving your solvable problems. There are 2 types of problems. The first is preserved problems, and the second is solvable problems. So basically, preservable problems are problems that you can learn to live with, but they're not something that will ever really go away, while solvable problems are things that you can learn to compromise on, because it doesn't necessarily take away from your own values in life. And if it does, you can kind of work together to shift that a little bit. So steps to achieving this are softening your startup. What that means is softening the way that you approach conflict and wanting a compromise. Repair attempts are ways that when a conflict is happening, the partner can do something to kind of minimize the flooding that might happen. And then soothing yourself and each other. This is really important when conflict arises and when solving problems, because when flooding does happen, it can really, no problems will really get solved. And so you're going to want, like, being able to soothe is really important, which is what repair attempts help to do. And then there's compromise. Of course, this is the one where you want to be able to compromise and find a base ground that you can both be happy with, because otherwise the problem is probably not a solvable problem. And then dealing with emotional injuries. This is past times when gridlock has happened on a conflict, and it wasn't addressed. So you need to be able to heal from those by talking about them. Principle number 6 is overcoming said gridlock. So gridlock is defined by continuing argument. So it's an argument that goes on over and over again. It's an argument that continues to have no humor, no empathy, affection, basically no repair attempts. It's polarized. One partner thinks one way, the other partner thinks exactly the opposite. And compromise seems impossible because it causes a person to basically deny a part of themselves to an extent. So overcoming gridlock, you need to understand your own dreams. So this is understanding dreams that are probably caused and kind of placed on you because of like your childhood and other aspects of that. And then it's respecting each other's dreams, so pushing your partner to figure out their dreams and achieve their dreams, and respecting that way they can respect your dreams as well. And you need to understand aspects of each other's past because of that. And gridlock happens when dreams are hidden from one another, so they don't discuss aspects that they believe because of their childhood, and then not understanding that emotional level, deep level from each other can cause gridlock to happen because the other partner just won't understand that. And then discussing dreams. This is an exercise where two people are basically placed to discuss past experiences that cause them to have these values, and that can help work things out. So when working on gridlock, step 1 is to explore the dream and understand that about within yourself. Step 2 is to soothe. This is where you use repair attempts to soothe your partner while you're talking about the dreams that you want to achieve. And then temporary compromise. So you have to make a list of he recommends making a list of non-negotiable things within your values and negotiable things, and the negotiables list should be as long as you possibly can get it, and the non-negotiable should be as tiny as possible. That way you can come up with an easier compromise or ways to compromise. And then step 4 is just appreciating the ways your partner is trying to work with you. And so appreciating that about each other and saying thank you all the time is really helpful. Principle number 7 is creating shared meaning. So this is basically just coming together to bring two ideas or two values and kind of adopting those into each other to create within your family meaning. So there are 4 pillars within this, and it is rituals of connection. So this is basically just things you do to kind of make these meanings and have them become memorabilia. And then supporting each other's roles. So many couples have different ideas of roles, either basically just within their family. All different people have different roles of who they are in the family and family dynamic and structure and things like that. So understanding those for each other and supporting them is really important. And then having shared goals for your family and your life and the things you want is really important because it unifies your team. And then having shared values and symbols is also really important. That's basically the memorabilia, and having something that represents things within your relationship that have built you guys up. And then and then the afterward. So this is basically a couple tips that he gives. He comes up with ideas for partings. He says that when parting from one another, it is important to not part unless you know one thing going on within your partner's day. And this all has to do with putting time and effort into your relationship as well. And then reunions, when you reunite, you should have rituals around that, and they should be welcoming, fun, all those sort of things, affection, admiration, and appreciation. You should be showing admiration and appreciation for your partner very often. It'll make them feel loved, all those sorts of things. And then a weekly date. He does suggest doing that to put time and effort to catch up into your relationship. And he also, one of the pieces of advice that he gives is a state of the union meeting, which is basically just being able to be with one another for a longer period of time, to be able to discuss your relationship and the things that you want to improve on. And so he gives a lot of really good tips about that, and his 7 principles are something to consider. They all do build off of one another, and so things from some of the later principles will work themselves out as you use the earlier principles in your marriage, but overall using them is great. And thank you.